Normally, Friday the 13th is not a lucky night. However, we're very lucky to have with us tonight a very special guest, someone who I first met several weeks ago. He and I were at the head table at a dinner in Boston, and Father Patrick Healy was the invocator, delivered the blessing before the meal at this event. And we had a chance, we sat next to each other, and I learned about a life that is extraordinary. There's no other way to describe his life as extraordinary. A life of service, both to the Catholic faith, but to the U.S. military and to the men and women who served in the U.S. military. We have lots to talk about, but first of all, Father Healy, welcome to the studio. I know you listen to the show, but welcome to the studio.
I hear you very, very often, and you do a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. Whatever I do pales in comparison to your life. First of all, for those of you who may not be familiar with Father Healy, Charlestown native. Grew up, how many brothers and sisters?
Actually, there were 10 of us all together. I was the number 9. My brother Dan was the only one who made a mistake. My brother Dan joined the Marine Corps. The Marines in the Army are always fighting.
Huzzah, right, hooah, right, okay. Well, but anyway, you wrote a book a few years ago called The Finger of God.
I did.
And you're not here to sell the book tonight. I'm not even sure if people can get the book, but it's an amazing story of someone who was academically gifted, athletically gifted in many ways, but you made a decision sometime in the late 1930s to become a Catholic priest.
I did.
What drove you to that decision? Or what I shouldn't say drove you, how did that vocation appear to you?
Yeah. Oh, many people ask me, what is the genesis of your priesthood? First of all, it's a gift of God from above. Secondly, my mother and father were deeply Christian. All of my brothers and sisters were very much into the faith. And I was the 9th of 10. My father and mother, my father especially, was daily communicant. My mother, with 10 children, just got out off and on to get to church. But then, in addition to God, my mother and father, my priests in my parish, St. Mary's in Charlestown, we had 4 young curates, as they used to call them then. Now they were associates, but they were all young. They were all athletic. I was a member of a gang then we called them gangs, the Chestnut Eagles, and we had baseball, football, hockey. We used to go out to Spot Pond to play hockey, and the priest would come with us. We went down to Loon Pond Camp down at Lakeview, run by the Boston Council of Boy Scouts. We had tents there. We went in February for a week, lived in pup tents. The priest came along with us, and we had a drummer bugle corps. One of the priests marched with us and played baseball. They were better baseball players than we were. And for me, it just was an inspiration.
So they were role models.
They were role
models.
They really were.
Now, what people are going to not believe when I tell them, you were 99 years young.
I am.
99 years young, and you still are active. You're at the Chelsea Soldiers Home.
Right.
And celebrate the Mass every day actively. Yep. And you still are an active priest. But what people do not know is that as a young priest, you served as a chaplain in Korea.
I did.
As maybe a little bit of an older priest, you served as a chaplain in Vietnam.
I had 2 tours there.
2 tours in Vietnam. And you have been in the military
23 years.
23 years, and you are the recipient of several honors and distinctions, including the Bronze Star.
3 of them.
Now, it's an unbelievable record, and to think that it has been accomplished in only 99 years. That's the point.
Right.
I mean, if you were blessed with a long life, think of all the other things you could have done. I mean,
right.
It's an amazing story. And so, but I'd like to talk about tonight a little bit, besides your life, your career, Also, the title of the book, The Finger of God. Explain that one to me. Where does that comes from the Bible?
Right. Reading the Bible over the years, many times I came across the expression, the Old and the New Testament, the finger of God. I know that Dan here is a Latin scholar, so he said, would you try the Latin? I said, did you just Dei est hic? And he said, no, you made a mistake. But anyway, he pointed it out. But the finger of God is here. So my whole life, as I started out by saying, we had a role model in our priest, my mother and father at home, my brothers and sisters. And actually, our gang of 21 in Charlestown, the Chestnut Eagles, 5 of us became priests. None of us ended up in jail, but we were all from Charlestown.
No bank robbers in the group, right?
There are plenty in town, I guess, but I didn't know them particularly.
I understand that.
We also had loopers.
So the what's a looper?
A looper was way back in the 20s. There was a fellow named Shiny Sheehan, who's long since been dead. And Bunker Hill Street goes from Hay Square to Sullivan Square. It's about a mile long. It's a big hill, goes up to the real Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill was actually Breed's Hill, and Bunker Hill is now St. Francis de Sales Church. The pastor there is Father Dan Mahoney. He's a chaplain for the fire department, has been for 40 years. But the loopers would steal a car, usually a Model A Ford or a Chevrolet or something.
Something modern.
Right. And they would go down and go City Square, go by the Station 15, toot the horn, and it didn't count for their particular club, which it did not belong to. And they had to have a police chase them down to Hay Square, Bunker Hill Street. Then they would ditch the car. But they would go 60, 65 miles an hour.
So it was a challenge. It was
a challenge.
Sort of like the Grand Prix of Charlestown, if you will.
Indeed. And that word would get around the underground. 9 o'clock tonight, they're going over the hill. So it usually be in the summertime. And we'd go out in the corner. It finally stopped right after, just before the war, 1939, I guess. And they had what they called a magic carpet. The Station 15 police would be there. They had a large leather thing they carried across the street from telephone pole to the other with spikes stuck up. And one of the young police officers didn't get all the way across. He put his hands up to stop the speeding car. The car hit him, killed him. He had a wife and 3 or 4 children in Dorchester. Yeah. So that was the end of the loop.
I can understand that. My guest is Father Patrick Healy of Charlestown, 99 years young. And we're going to talk with him a lot about what we should be thinking about. We're dealing with coronavirus. He's dealt with a lot in his life, and we're going to look for some guidance and some advice. Before we get to phone calls, and we have a bunch of phone calls here, and we will get to you. So I'm going to ask you to be a little patient, folks. I'm sure that many of you, I see that a couple of the calls are from Charlestown, so I think we have a couple of positive callers at least, Father Healy. Look, we're going through the coronavirus thing here. And you, when you look back, you lived through the Roaring 20s. You lived through the Great Depression. You were in the seminary during World War II. You ended up as a chaplain in Korea, in Vietnam. You were alive for the Kennedy assassination, for the attempted assassinations of Gerald Ford twice, of Ronald Reagan. You lived through all of the crazy hijackings of the 1980s. 9/11, the current Iraq-Afghanistan situation, which is our longest war. People are really, I think, besides themselves over this coronavirus. I've been in a couple of supermarkets lately, and it's you'd think that it was Armageddon. What wisdom, what guidance would you give to all of us? I mean, I'm sure you keep up to date with the news. You know what's going on with this coronavirus thing. Everybody, schools are closing. The Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL. I've never seen anything like it. What guidance can you give us here to be thinking about?
Actually, the main thing is one day at a time, and actually a person with faith has less trouble coping with these difficulties that arise, and the people get the false philosophies of the day, which is secularism, there's no need for God, and materialism, make as much money as you can, And in the philosophies of hedonism, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So when we live with no idea of the future, the fact that we were put into this world to prove that we're worthy of paradise and atone for any shortcomings of which we're guilty, then actually it's nothing to live for. Actually, so in order to have a goal, and the goal should be paradise, this past week we have an average of 4 to 8 funerals a week at the Soldiers' Home in Chelsea. We're 500 residents there, and they cope with life. And I learned many lessons from them. For example, if I don't want to take too much time.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening.
All right, we had Bishop Irwin died recently, about 6 or 8 months ago, and left me a wheelchair. And he said, you could give this to somebody who really needs it. So we have one of our soldiers, ex-soldiers, over at the Soldiers' Home, and he had a shock on his right-hand side, so he walks laboriously with a cane. And I said, how would you like to have an electric chair? He said, geez, that would be wonderful. So I gave him the electric wheelchair, which had belonged to Bishop Irwin, who had been the bishop here in Boston, the associate bishop. And 3 or 4 days later, he came to me and he said, you know, that electrical wheelchair is fine, but you know, up in 4 Center, there's one man who's been in now for about a month. He has lost his right leg. He's been a veteran in World War II, and he needs the chair more than I do. And he gave up the chair, and I felt that was a wonderful, wonderful example of what's going on among the men themselves, the veterans.
Let me ask you this question, and this is a spiritual question, just to put things in context. You served as a chaplain in 2 wars, 2 real shooting wars, Korea and Vietnam. Lost a lot of men and women in Korea. I think it was about 30,000, if I'm not mistaken, about 58,000 in Vietnam. So I'm sure you have seen things that those of us who never were in combat and those of us who were never in the military could never imagine. How have you been able to keep your faith through some of the horrific things that you have seen?
Well, the things that you see really intensify your faith. In fact, going beyond and before, when I was in the military, I was teaching up in Buffalo, and I went to the University of Buffalo Chronic Research Institute, and I used to go every Sunday to the thalidomide children. Now, we think we have a bad time today, but I visited there with the parents of children who were born with flippers instead of arms, and that thalidomide was given to them by mistake, and it would be given to pregnant mothers to ease the pregnancy, and the children that were born totally disfigured, and their whole lives were changed. I used to counsel them and bring them First Communion. One little girl would get angry if I spoke to anyone else there. She said, he's my priest. And she was about 6 years old.
And this would have been probably in the 1950s, I'm guessing.
It was,
yeah.
Early 50s, mid-50s.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, as a priest, you've seen horrific things. I'm sure that there were soldiers in Korea and Vietnam who you got to know who were killed.
Absolutely.
How do you make sense of that as a Catholic and as a Christian?
Well, actually, you're taking it upon yourself day to day. Once again, the finger of God is here. So maybe today is my day, maybe it isn't. But that's the attitude of most of them. And most of the men that I was with, their ages in Vietnam was 18 and 19 to 25. And their faith returned when they were in Vietnam. And they used to have a good number coming to daily Mass. I'd meet them, and I had some, in the book they might have mentioned, and I have some pictures saying Mass on the top of my Jeep out in the field for the 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne. And then for those who've been in Vietnam know that there were landing zones on top of mountains. They were called LZs. I used to go to LZ Salem, Zagar, Tubits in English. And there's about 200 men on the top with 175 millimeter guns. And they were just tremendous. I'd come in a helicopter, I'd say Mass for them, stay and have lunch with them. When I was leaving, I'd say, you know, what can I bring back next week when I come? And they'd all want a pallet of beer. I said, it wouldn't fit in the helicopter. I'll bring you a six-pack. And then it also want 8mm bulbs for the film projectors that they had. They're on 8mm. That was their only entertainment. They never came off the mountains.
Now, talk about you talk about the helicopter rides in those days, which were quite dangerous, as I'm sure anyone who is familiar with Vietnam knows. But you were involved in a mid-air collision stateside.
Right.
Tell us about that.
I don't want to be too loquacious. However, I was home from Japan after 7 years there as a missionary. And I was leaving Logan. I was going over to Paterson, New Jersey, and I was going to preach in December the 8th, an 8-day novena to the Immaculate Conception. And I got on a Constellation, that'd be a four-tailed plane. We took off at 4 in the afternoon. I think it was in December the 8th, before December the 8th, about the 4th. And as we were going up there, just about 60 miles north of New York, there's a holding pattern for Kennedy Airport.
And what year we're talking here? Sometime in
1965.
1965,
right.
And it's a good day. You good day for flying. No weather problems, or
beautiful clouds.
Okay,
right.
Yeah, sounds a little bit of an oxymoron when you're at 30,000 feet. But go ahead, Father.
We were in the clouds. And as I say, there's a spiral that goes up miles in the air, and every 1,000 feet, certain planes are held in as they come in from overseas.
Yeah, maintain their altitude, sure.
Yeah, and as they come in from California. So 707 jet cut in out of the clouds. It came out a beautiful sunny day, but the clouds were there. Came out of the clouds, and they were spotted by two sailors who were just coming from a 6-month tour up in the North Atlantic. And they dropped their cameras that they saw the planes coming at us. It was that 707 jet. And they collided with us and cut off our triple tail. And they themselves lost 24 feet of the wing. They landed safely in Kennedy without a scratch. But we crash landed. Several people died. One soldier, going back to Dix, by the way, was on the plane, and he was burned to death. There was another person who was working with her husband. They were on the plane on a free flight. They've been working for about 6 months now for Eastern Airlines. It was a shuttle flight. It cost about $15, by the way.
I remember those days.
And anyway, the pilot got on. He said, "This is the pilot. We've been involved in a mid-air collision, and we're going to have to crash land. So just imagine, brace yourself. I won't be able to help you because I'll be busy up front." So we just flattened out, and we could feel the thing trying to turn by using the props because you couldn't bank with no tail. And we crashed into a farm in North Salem, New York. And the plane burst into flames. And on the way down, before we burst into the flames, I gave the people a blessing. And I said, it's a Navy nurse from the Chelsea Naval Hospital was sitting beside me. We were talking about Japan. She wanted to be assigned over there. And when we crashed and we were getting ready for the landing, she said, "Is that enough? Could I go to confession?" I said, "No, you can go to confession." So when she finished the confession, I looked around and I said, "I know there's more fear in my heart than there is on her face." And the only prayer I remembered was a prayer we learned from my father, very simple. And it was to the apostles when they're out in the boat and they're going to sink. And they said, "Let's awaken Jesus." And the person's, the loudest voice of all, of course, was Peter, saying, "He's no sailor. We don't wake him up." And then a wave came and the boat just about capsized. And in one voice, they all cried out, "Lord, save us. We're perishing." So my father said, if you're ever in trouble, that's the prayer to say. So I'll finish that story about the plane crash by saying that as I looked at the girl and saw the terror in her face, I said, there's more fear and everything in my heart. But I said that prayer, and all fear was dissipated. And I didn't remember any sermons I heard on Sunday, so I'm never too impressed by my own sermons because I didn't think of those. I didn't think of any theology.
How much
class.
time did you have between the time of the
10 minutes.
mid-air collision? So 10 minutes.
10 minutes. There was a book written, 10 Minutes to Live.
Wow. Wow, what a story. What a life. My guest is Father Patrick Healy. His book is The Finger of God. He's 99 years young, and you can hear him as his voice exemplifies how strong he is, not only physically but also spiritually. And I just thought that at this time of coronavirus and the panic that many of us, I think, are feeling, that his words tonight might inspire us with some confidence that, yes, we'll take it a day at a time. Gene in Charlestown. Hi, Gene. You were first tonight on the Ring Central Nightside caller line, and I suspect you probably know Father Healy since you're from Charlestown.
I certainly do. I know he doesn't know me, but I know him. And I always feel very happy when I go to a function in Charlestown and see him with Father Mahoney. I feel all the bases are covered when they're together. Father, are you familiar, of course, you must be, with the corner of Sullivan and High Street, where the loopers used to go?
I certainly know. We were talking about those loopers, right?
Yep. Well, you know those bollards that are up there, that those poles that they put up to protect that house?
Yes.
If you go up there at Halloween, they have them all decorated like ghosts. It's so cute and so funny, Charlestown, Father, has also the pleasure, like I have had, of seeing Charlestown in its heyday with drugstores and fruit stores and so much more than Starbucks, if you know what I'm saying.
I certainly do.
So we go back a long way. I hope this situation with this virus has me very frightened. I'm 83, and I know Father Mahoney, we're all in the same boat, so hopefully we'll get through this. Father, I look forward.
Thank you very much, Gene, and I will be there in Charlestown. I go back every Saturday, and I say Mass at the Zelma Lacey. And
oh, yes,
I
yeah.
see Jackie Pierce and Peter Pappas and a lot of the old crowd there. Gene.
Yeah, you see, John Tagliatella's mother is there down there now.
Right, and also...
Yep.
Also,
yeah, we're old townies, Dan. You don't know what
I know,
it is,
and I learned a long time ago never to interrupt a conversation between two townies. Okay, but I got to let you go because we got full lines. Thanks, Gene.
I'm so happy to talk with you. Be well.
Have a great night. All right, you'll be fine, Gene. Trust me, you'll be fine. I think you got Father in your corner. 617-254-1030, 888-929-1030. Let's talk with Gene, another Gene, but this Gene's calling in from Brookline. Hi, Gene in Brookline. You're on the Ring Central Nightside caller line with Father Patrick Healy, 99 years young. His book, The Finger of God. Gene, we can't hear you. We'll put Gene on hold, and we'll come back, try to resurrect. We resurrect phone callers sometimes.
That's wonderful.
Father. I want you to know.
It's amazing what you can do.
Yes,
man.
it's yeah, sometimes, though. Gene in Brookline, we just lost a call back. Gene, we'll put you up at the head of the line. Let's go to Jim in Charlestown. Jim, welcome. You're on the Ring Central Nightside caller line with Father Patrick Healy. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Dan, this is your friend Jim Collins. How are you?
Jimmy Collins. I went to college with this young man.
That's right, and I'm living in South Boston, as you know, but I'm a townie.
Yep,
and,
you guys are always townies. I just mentioned to Father Healy, Richie Craven and Joe Campbell, a couple of hockey teammates.
Oh yeah, well, Father Pat, otherwise known as Padre, to those of us who know him well, and my dad were very, very good friends, and they played in the Chestnut Eagles together.
Right.
And so I'm so pleased that you have invited someone of the quality of Father Healy to your program, given the cadre of people that you bring on over the years. You do an excellent job as what you characterize as the voice of reason. Well, in my opinion, Father Healy is the voice of God.
Yeah.
And
I have that same sense. I have that same sense.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that represents Charlestown over the generations, it's Padre. So Padre, hello.
Jim, hello to you. I have
yes.
to share something with you. You almost didn't come to Charlestown or appear in Charlestown because you heard me mention earlier to Dan that in our gang at Chestnut Eagles, 5 went into the seminary, became priests. Jerry Moran, Nick Neville, John Hughes up in High Street. And your dad was at BC High. They beat Latin School that year, by the way.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that.
I just slipped that one in.
No, I get you. Okay.
But at any rate, your dad was a shot putter at Boston College High School. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Yeah,
I tried, but I wasn't as good.
Well, he was a great shot putter, and he also played the bugle, and he just was a very wonderful person. He lived right up there next to the high school, and has a large family like my own. So good talking to you,
Jim, please say hi to your son, the state senator, for us, okay? Jim, of course,
yes,
represented
I
Charlestown in the legislature, as I think many of my listeners would know. Jimmy was a great,
and the Healy and the Brennan.
And a great athlete, by the
Healy
way,
and the
himself.
Brennan family were very dear friends, and I rarely call. So when I heard his name as I'm sitting here at the dinner table, I said, "Oh my God, I have to."
Let me ask you this, Jim. Let me ask you: does this make you a first-time caller?
A first-time call, I believe it or not.
Well, let's get a round of applause here. Come on, from our studio audience. You kidding me? Again, Jim was a very great athlete at Boston State in his day too, by the way. Jimmy, thank you so much. Great to hear your voice, my friend. Say hi to your son.
Yeah, keep it up, Dan. Keep it up, Dan. Right. And Padre, take care.
Thanks for calling, Jim. Call you later.
Talk to you later. Okay, thanks, buddy. Let's go next to going to go to Bill in Quincy. Bill in Quincy, you are next on Nightside with the Patrick Healy.
Yep. How you doing, Dan? Hello, Father. Reason I'm calling is that you don't know me, but you knew my brother. You and my brother are real good friends up there at the Chelsea Soldier Home until he passed. If you remember Stephen Haskell.
I certainly do. A very holy man, by the way. Prayed for all you guys.
I'll tell you.
I think he just took a shot at you there, Bill, whether you realize it or not, okay?
Yeah, I know. That's okay. And unfortunately, as you know, he had COPD stage 4, and that he's no longer with us.
Well, hopefully he's in a much better place, Bill.
I'm sure he's in
heaven. That happened in January of 18. Then he died at MGH, and then an associate of yours, Father, did the funeral service for him.
Right.
I can't think of his name now, but
a very difficult one. O'Hara, Mike O'Hara.
Is that who it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
An oblate.
All right. Bill, appreciate your call. I got full line, so I want to get to everyone. Thanks for calling in. Have a great night.
All right. Hey, good to speak to you, Father.
Listen, thanks so much for calling. And again, I keep thinking of your father up there in heaven now, keeping an eye on you and me too.
All right. Thanks. His brother.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Bill. We'll take a very quick break. My guest is Father Patrick Healy. His book, The Finger of God, it's an amazing life story simply because it's been an amazing life. Francisco joins us. Is this my friend Francisco?
This is your friend and also Father Healy's friend. Listen,
this is
Father Healy.
Thank you, Francisco.
Francisco Marina. Let me do the right introduction. A member of the governor's cabinet, a Marine of many years who has served really very honorably and now serves as the Secretary of Veteran Affairs.
Yeah, he does a good job.
You bet he does. Francisco Urena, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, Francisco. I just wanted to do the introduction. That's all.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And listen, Father Healy, you are an inspiration to us all, not only your story, but your military and continued service to the Soldiers Home campus and the greater Chelsea campus and beyond. Every time that we are among you, you give us a sense of calmness and focus to what's important to all of us. And Father Healy, I wish you the very best to continue to serve our community, especially in times of trouble and as we put those troubles ahead and behind us. So thank you so very much, Father Healy.
Thank you very much. And I just want to share with you the fact that I usually meet with the guys in the smoking shack, even though I don't smoke. And I get all the news there, and they think that you're responsible for the new building that's going up. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be up in 2 years, and the veterans are going to have wonderful facilities. Rooms are going to be about 15 by 15. They have their own private shower. You're going to have 2 closets. Now they just have a little metal closet. And Francisco was one of the big guns behind getting it done. So thanks very much, Francisco.
I think the world of this guy. And Francisco, I don't want to jinx anything, but I won't be surprised someday if you're not the governor of the Commonwealth or a United States senator. You've done such great work for so many people. You're an amazing guy. So you got a big fan here on Nightside. And as we often say, if you ever do decide to run for public office, Francisco, I'll endorse you or your opponent, whichever helps you more, okay?
Gentlemen, thank you so very much, Father Healy. Looking forward to seeing you again in the campus, and thank you for your continued service. Thanks, Dan.
See you, see you, Francisco.
Right,
he didn't want to touch the political thing there for the 10-foot pole. Just an amazing young man, and amazing with guys like him. This country is going to be fine for generations to come. Still in his 30s. What he's accomplished in his 30s is amazing. Let's go next to Paul in Wakefield. Paul, you're next on Nightside, on the Ring Central Nightside caller line with Father Patrick Healy. Go ahead, Paul.
Good evening, Father, and good evening, Dan.
Hi, Paul.
Good evening.
I describe myself as a wayward Catholic or a cafeteria Catholic, and I don't know if I'm going off subject, but I have a hard time understanding or accepting when tragedies happen, similar to what happened to that family from the South Shore that was vacationing in Florida.
Yeah.
Or the shooting in Connecticut a few years back at the school.
Right.
How do I understand how a just God can allow something like
that? Yeah, you really can't understand it. Actually, you're really asking to have God's mind and brains and stuff. So we can accept what he does, but he allows these things to happen, but he doesn't cause them. I'm thinking right now of Father Ed from Lowell, who is a missionary to the Philippines. He was a very good friend of mine, Eddie McMahon, and actually he arrived on September of 1941, studied the Visayan dialect, just about getting where he could use it, when in February of 42, the Philippines were invaded by the Japanese, and he was picked up heading for Borneo with two other oblates. The three of them had no identification. They were put ashore at the Sulu Archipelago. The three of them were beheaded. And you say, how could this happen? Here's a man who just got through spending 7 years studying to become a priest, was priest less than a year, never baptized one person in the Philippines, and yet he was there and gave up his life. So we all feel now, we prayed toward Father Ed, and we feel that his death was not in vain, that the blood he shed brought many, many more conversions to the Philippines, and perhaps if he had stayed alive. So we just accept God's will, and that's deep faith and humility, by the way. So that's about all I have to say at this moment. And I think that things in Wakefield are going better. They tell me the churches are filling up. Is that true?
I find that at St. Joseph's, definitely, yes.
That's good.
All right. Paul, I appreciate that. I think the questions that you raised are the questions that a lot of people have raised over time, and I think that the explanation that Father Healy just gave you in a little less than a minute and a half is as clear an explanation of his beliefs and his faith as I've ever heard a priest give. So I hope, I don't know if it answered your questions, but hopefully it at least gave you a different perspective.
It shed light on the area, but thank you very much.
Thanks,
Have a nice
Paul.
night.
Appreciate your call.
Thanks very much, Ed.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Let me go next to Dennis in Arlington. Dennis, you're next on Nightside with Father Patrick Healy. Go ahead, Dennis.
Good evening, Father. Good evening, Dan.
Dennis, good evening.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Father, for taking care of my brother-in-law, Henry T. Murray.
Terrific
He passed away recently.
Yep.
He was up at the Soldiers' Home. And you also brought him back to the church. And the funny story about he used to tell me was, I can't miss church now because there's a tunnel. I don't have to shovel any snow, and I don't have to walk out in the rain.
Yeah. And
so you kind of brought him back to the church.
Well, Henry certainly read avidly. He was a tremendous reader.
Yes.
And I used to play before Mass began, Gregorian chant. And he called me as I was going down to start the procession for the beginning of Mass. He was there in his colored pajamas and jacket, and he called me over and he said, "Do you have to play that music?" And I said, "That's medieval, classical Gregorian chant." He said, "I think that Martin Luther was right." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You know what Martin Luther said?" I said, "I do. I hope you're not thinking that." And he said, "I am. It sounds like the braying of a wild ass." And I said, I haven't played it since, by the way.
All right, we'll let that one go with that one. Thanks, Dennis. I appreciate your call. I want to get a couple more in.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks very much.
I want to get Eugene in Charlestown in here. Eugene, next on Nightside. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Dan, and good evening, Father Healy. This is Eugene. Father, Tricia and I are big fans of yours, and just wanted to call and say to you how much we appreciate what you have done at the Chelsea Soldiers Home over the years to St. Michael's. You're greatly appreciated. You've touched so many people, been an inspiration to so many people, serve as an example to so many people, not just as a priest, but as a man for your service to this country, as well as to the service to the folks that have come to know you in time of need, especially those folks that are around the neighborhood, not just at the Soldiers Home. And just wanted to call and say thank you very much for everything that you've done for so many people.
John, thank you. And
Gene, no, this is Gene O'Flaherty, I'm thinking. I think this is Gene O'Flaherty. Am I correct?
That's correct, Dan. How are you?
Former
Good evening,
state
sir.
representative. Absolutely. Gene, thank you very much.
Gene, I'm going to try harder.
in the next 99 years. Thanks, Gene. Talk to you soon. Going to get one more. We got Bob in Chelsea here, so let's give Bob a shot. Bob, you got to be real quick because we're running out of time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Father Healy. Bob Morosky calling. I just want to say thank you. Father Healy has the great ability of bringing people together, and he's done a tremendous job at the Soldiers Home at St. Michael's Chapel in the years that he's been there. And his guidance and his wisdom is just unlike any other. And thank you, Father, for all you've done.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was quick and to the point. Thanks, Bob. That's going to allow us to get Frank in as the last caller. Frank, we only got less than a minute, but I got you in under the wire. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Father, I just want to say it was an absolute privilege and honor to hear you say Mass down in Zelma Lacey. My mother was Peggy Gunning, and you knew my uncles, the Gunnings from Mount Vernon Street up in Charlestown, and also my cousins, the Harts. Dan, this guy's top shelf.
I figured that out. I figured out that first time I sat next to him and had dinner. Trust me on that.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough, Father.
John
for,
Gunning
for
was
the kindness you showed to my family.
John Gunning was a classmate of mine, by the way.
That's right. My Uncle John.
From Mount Vernon Street.
All right, Frank, I got to let you go because we're flat out of time. Thanks so much for calling. Father Pat, an amazing hour.
Right.
To me, I think it's what we needed, particularly this week. And maybe folks can hold on to this and keep it in their mind for the next few days or the next few weeks as we work our way through this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And an hour went by so quick.
It always does. It's like the sand in the hourglass. Yeah. Father Patrick Healy, the book is The Finger of God. If you can find it, it's well worth the read.
You can't. I didn't publish it.
Okay.
I had 3 printings.
Okay.
But
that's okay. Someone will find it. If they see it, if you see it at Ken Gloss.